When Caleb was about 6 years old, his family decided to vacation on the picturesque island of St. Kitts. This island, located in the heart of the Caribbean, was known for its lush scenery, vibrant culture, and welcoming resorts. Little did they know yet that this vacation would be forever etched in their memories. The resort they chose was a paradise with a sparkling pool overlooking the azure Caribbean Sea. For Caleb, the trip was an exciting adventure filled with new experiences and newfound friends. Playing in the pool, he quickly made friends with the other children at the resort, and together they all lounged in the warm, crystal-clear water. One sunny afternoon, as the children splashed around in the pool and enjoyed their newfound camaraderie, Caleb's attention was caught by a woman in the pool. She was alone, floating in an inflatable ring, and her presence seemed to puzzle him. His new friend, David, who was a year older, leaned toward him and whispered, "That woman is dumb." Caleb furrowed his eyebrows, trying to figure out the meaning of this new word. He didn't know what the word dumb meant, but he didn't want to appear ignorant, so he simply nodded, feigning understanding. The woman in question was middle-aged, her eyes aloof and her expression unusual. Caleb couldn't pinpoint exactly what was unusual about her, but decided that the word dumb had something to do with her unusual behavior. As the children continued to bathe and play, fate took a disturbing turn. Caleb found himself drifting away from his friends and was soon alone in the water. After hiding from his parents, he approached the mysterious woman. He didn't remember how he ended up there, but there he was, standing before her with a sense of curiosity. The woman's gaze stopped on Caleb, and without warning she spoke in a mysterious tone, "Close your eyes, and you're in for a big surprise." Not knowing what to do, Caleb hesitated for a moment before following her instructions. He closed his eyes, succumbing to the stranger's whims. As soon as Caleb's eyelids closed, the atmosphere changed dramatically. A shiver ran down his spine and his instincts kicked in. He felt a sharp jolt and realized he was being pulled underwater. Panic flowed through his veins and he tried to open his eyes, but the woman's hands pressed them to his temples, preventing them from closing. Desperation gripped Caleb and he tried to break free of her grip. He felt her fists pounding his head, and the force of her blows was surprising for someone who had seemed so gentle a few minutes ago. He gasped with each blow, but water poured into his mouth and nose, making his cries for help inaudible. His parents, oblivious to the unfolding nightmare, lay in the distance, basking in the sun. But it was Caleb's quick-thinking mother who suddenly sensed something wrong. Her maternal instincts kicked into high gear as she surveyed the pool area and noticed her son's absence. With terror in her heart, her gaze stopped on the woman in the pool, mercilessly attacking her son. With a guttural scream, she rushed toward the water. The other guests, alarmed by her scream, rushed to her aid. The woman who tried to drown Caleb had an assistant who was assigned to watch over her due to her mental illness. However, at the crucial moment, this helper was carelessly sunbathing and paid no attention to the vicious actions of her ward. Caleb's mother felt a surge of anger and resentment towards this woman who should have been vigilant. Just in time, Caleb's mother approached the struggling couple in the water. With determination, she managed to pull the woman's hands away from her son's face. When the gasping boy came to the surface, he was coughing and spitting up, disoriented and frightened. By this time, resort staff had arrived and the mentally disturbed woman was quickly assisted, while her inattentive assistant was met with scorn and sympathy. When the commotion subsided, Caleb's mother cradled her son against her, tears of relief streaming down her face. The terrible incident had left an indelible mark on both her and Caleb. The serene paradise island of St. Kitts had become the setting for an unthinkable and difficult event. Rose had always been a driven professional, and her work often took her to the most remote corners of the world. On this business trip, she was on a red-eye flight to New York, settling into an aisle seat with her laptop and a novel to occupy herself while she traveled. As the plane filled up, Rose couldn't help but notice the man who took the seat next to her. He was impeccably dressed, with a well-groomed beard and piercing blue eyes that read charm and confidence. As she had learned from their casual conversation, his name was Mark. He, too, was an experienced traveler, and they were quickly drawn together by their shared experience of frequent business trips. As time passed, their conversation became more and more engaging. They discussed their work, their hometowns, and even found common ground in their predilection for fine wines. Rose, who had been somewhat wary of meeting strangers, found herself surprisingly comfortable with Mark. It didn't hurt that he had a magnetic personality and a way of putting people at ease. Finally, the flight landed at JFK Airport, and in farewell Rose and Mark exchanged business cards. Promising to keep in touch, Rose checked into the hotel, a cozy establishment on the outskirts of Manhattan, and settled into her room. After a long day of meetings and travel, she was happy to settle into the soft bed and snuggle up to the television. The evening was drawing in, and Rose, popcorn in hand, immersed herself in the crime drama. The thrilling twists and turns of the show kept her in suspense. The atmosphere in the hotel room was relaxing, and Rose forgot about the outside world for a moment. Just at that moment, as the television drama reached its climax, the phone rang, bringing her out of her tranquil state. She answered the call and was surprised to hear the voice of the hotel receptionist. "Ms. Rose, I apologize for the disturbance. We have a gentleman at reception who claims to be your husband. He says he has just arrived and would like a room key. Is that correct?" She was overcome with confusion. Her husband was supposed to be at home, thousands of miles away from her. Why was he suddenly in New York? She heard the faint sounds of a man's voice in the background. "Could you hold on a minute?" Rosa asked, hanging up the phone. Asked Rosa, putting the phone down on the side table. She couldn't understand why her husband had shown up unannounced. It was completely incomprehensible. She pulled out her husband's contact information from her phone and dialed his number. "Hello, darling. Is everything all right?" came her husband's voice in the receiver. "Where are you?" asked Rosa, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm home, Rosa. As I have been all day. Is everything all right?" Rosa's heart was pounding frantically as she hung up the phone and went back to the call from the hotel. "I'm so sorry, but there must be some kind of mistake. My husband is at home. The man at the front desk. It's not him." The manager at the front desk looked equally puzzled. "I apologize for the confusion, Ms. Rose. We will handle the situation. Please remain in your room. We will call security." As she hung up, Rose felt a rush of anxiety and fear. What was going on? Who was this man who called himself her husband? The phone in her hand rang again. It was the front desk. "Ms. Rose, our security team has arrived. They are speaking with the gentleman and verifying his identity." Rose waited anxiously, her heart pounding in her chest. She could no longer concentrate on the television program. It seemed like an eternity before the phone rang again. "Ms. Rose, I'm sorry to inform you, but there seems to have been some sort of misunderstanding. The man at the front desk showed us his ID and it matches the name on your reservation." Rose was flabbergasted. How could this stranger have gotten her husband's ID? Thoughts of her flight flashed through her mind. And then it hit her. Mark. He'd seen her business card. He had her full name and hotel reservation information. But how could he have her husband's ID? She decided to take matters into her own hands. She grabbed her purse, put her cell phone, room key and some of the necessities in it. Cautiously, she slowly opened the room door and looked out into the hallway. She saw the hotel security staff talking to a man she assumed was an imposter. Rose quickly walked over to them, her heart racing with excitement. The man turned and looked at her. It was indeed Mark, his charming smile gone, replaced by a cold, calculating stare. "What's going on here?" demanded Rosa, her voice shaking. The expression on Mark's face didn't change. "I wanted to surprise you," he said, continuing to play the part. "I knew you'd be staying here, so I thought I'd fly down and spend time with you." The security personnel, not entirely convinced by the situation, turned to Rose for clarification. She looked at Mark, a mix of anger, fear, and disappointment in her eyes. "Sir, you need to leave immediately," she told Mark sternly, her voice filled with authority. "This is not how you surprise someone. It's invasive, and it's dishonest. If you don't leave now, I will call the police." Mark hesitated for a moment, then reluctantly agreed and left the hotel. Rose watched him go, her mind reeling with shock. She quickly returned to her room, locked the door, and sank into a chair. She couldn't believe what had just transpired. As the night wore on, Rose tried to make sense of it all. Mark had taken her husband's ID, posed as him, and had tried to enter her room. The incident left her feeling vulnerable and violated, and it was a stark reminder of the importance of being cautious with strangers, even those who seem friendly. The next day, Rose reported the incident to the hotel management and, eventually, the local authorities. They launched an investigation into Mark's actions, which ultimately led to his arrest for identity theft and trespassing. Rose felt a mixture of relief and anger. She had trusted the wrong person on that plane, and it had nearly cost her dearly. The experience left a lasting impact on Rose, and she became even more cautious in her travels. It was a lesson she would carry with her forever, a reminder that even in the friendliest of skies, there could be a dark and dangerous cloud lurking just behind the charm of a stranger. Yangon, a city rich in history and culture, beckoned Stephen and his wife on a warm evening. Their journey had been long and tiring, but the alluring power of this mystical country of Myanmar was irresistible. As they disembarked from the plane at Yangon International Airport, excitement and anticipation gripped them. The cab ride to the hotel was a whirlwind of colorful sights and sounds. The city was buzzing with life, its ancient pagodas and bustling markets hypnotizing. But what drew them even more into its enchanting embrace was the inexplicably low price of their chosen hotel. The hotel, a stately but somewhat dilapidated building, loomed before them. They were greeted by a somewhat apologetic manager who explained that the reason for the low prices was the ongoing renovations on several floors. Ignoring this minor inconvenience, they checked into the hotel and headed for their room. The room was spacious but was showing clear signs of age. The wallpaper was peeling and the air conditioning was struggling to keep up with the Yangon heat. But fatigue overcame all doubts, and Stephen and his wife fell into a fitful sleep. The next morning they woke up refreshed and ready to explore the city. A hearty breakfast awaited them in the hotel dining room, and they soon struck up a conversation with a friendly group of fellow travelers, Germans who had also decided to stay at the hotel for the night. The Germans, whose names were Marcus and Clara, talked about their travels in Myanmar. However, it became apparent that their night had been much less peaceful than that of Stephen and his wife. Marcus described how they were suddenly awakened in the middle of the night and ordered to move to another floor. It had been a strange and unsettling experience. Talking over coffee and tea, the group could not help but speculate about the reasons for the nighttime relocation. The Germans believed it was due to renovation work, but the details remained under a veil of secrecy. Their curiosity was heightened when they noticed a group of hotel employees in protective gear. Apparently, they were disinfecting the rooms on the floor where Marcus and Clara had been moved. The sight was disturbing, and they couldn't help but wonder about the nature of the disinfection. Reconnecting with each other, Stephen, his wife, Marcus, and Clara decided to investigate further. The hotel staff was terse, but eventually reported that the disinfection was due to a bedbug infestation on that floor. This news sent shivers down my spine, because bedbugs are not something any traveler would want to encounter. My heart sank as the hotel staff recounted a creepy incident that happened just a couple nights ago. They explained that in the middle of the night, without proper documentation, they mistakenly directed guests to the floor where disinfection was being done. It was necessary to close the doors and pump in gas to kill the bedbugs. 2 unfortunate guests died before everyone realized the grave mistake. The enormity of the mistake was unsettling, and a palpable heaviness hung in the air. Marcus and Clara's faces turned ashy, and the eerie silence that followed spoke volumes. They were only 1 floor away from disaster, and the realization sent a chill down their spines. The Germans reflected on how narrow their escape had been and expressed gratitude and horror. For Stephen and his wife, the discovery was no less disturbing. The thought of how easily they could have been in this dangerous situation left them stunned into silence. As the day wore on, they could not shake off the uneasy feeling. They decided to cut short their stay at the hotel and look for lodging elsewhere. Safety and peace of mind became their top priorities. When Carolina was 12 years old, her family went on vacation to Europe. The charming streets of Rome, rich in history and culture, offered endless opportunities for adventure and discovery. But it was the indoor pool at the hotel that captured young Caroline's heart. As soon as she saw it, she knew she wanted to spend every moment of her vacation splashing and playing in the sparkling water. Their hotel was a luxurious 4-star establishment located in the heart of Rome's historic district. The hotel featured elegant architecture, lavish decor, and an impressive indoor pool. A massive, glittering oasis. It was enclosed in huge glass windows through which the golden light of the Mediterranean sun streamed in. The pool was surrounded by elegant chaise lounges and potted plants, creating a serene atmosphere that was perfect for both relaxing and entertaining. Caroline's mother, Mary, was passionate about giving her family a memorable experience in the Eternal City. She had always been the driving force behind their travels, and this vacation was no exception. But as fate would have it, it was the pool that became the centerpiece of their vacation. Carolina, being a child of her age, couldn't get enough of the pool. Every morning, when she woke up early, she would immediately head into the inviting water. Enjoying the feel of the cool liquid on her skin, she could dive, swim and float in the pool for hours, and her imagination would drift away along with the ripples of the water. One sunny afternoon, as she was enjoying the blissful solitude of the pool, an unexpected and disturbing event occurred. Caroline was splashing blissfully, immersed in her own world, when a stranger approached her. The man, who looked to be in his 40s or older, smiled disarmingly and radiated affability. He wore sunglasses that covered his eyes, making it impossible to see his intentions. He struck up a conversation with her, demonstrating a command of the English language that immediately put Caroline at ease. "You look like you're having a wonderful time," he said, curving the corners of his lips upward. Caroline nodded, her cheeks flushed with the pleasure of swimming. "It's amazing here," she replied with youthful enthusiasm. The man continued to chat with her, making light conversation and complimenting her. "You are such an adorable child," he grinned. Caroline, still feeling at ease, giggled at such a compliment. But then the situation took an unpleasant turn. Without warning, he reached out and playfully tickled her feet. It was a sudden and unexpected invasion of her privacy, but she took it as a joke at first. Her mother, Mary, was also at the pool and was busy caring for one of Caroline's younger siblings. The man, sensing Caroline's initial discomfort, began to use the situation to his advantage by mocking her ticklishness. "You're just too afraid of tickling," he teased, dancing his fingers along her legs. Caroline giggled, wriggling to avoid his touch, and timidly asked him to stop. She assumed this was all happening as a joke, but her anxiety was growing. Despite her pleas, the man continued to tickle her, moving from her feet to her shins. Her laughter became nervous and a knot of fear knotted in her stomach. The torment seemed to go on for what seemed like an eternity, though it was really only a couple minutes. Caroline's heart pounded and she cast anxious glances at her mother, who was still preoccupied with her brother and sister. The man's touch was becoming more and more intrusive, and it was obvious that he was not engaged in innocent play. Just when Caroline thought she couldn't take it anymore, fierce determination in her eyes, Mary rushed toward her daughter like a protective lioness ready to defend her cub. "Stand back," she declared, and there was an unwavering determination in her voice. The man, stunned and perhaps frightened by Mary's sudden and furious intervention, backed away from Caroline. He muttered something incoherent and hurried away, disappearing into the hotel. Mary's maternal rage did not subside until she was satisfied that her daughter was safe again. Caroline was shocked by what had happened, her laughter replaced by tears. Her mother hugged her tightly, assuring her that she was safe. They left the pool and Caroline recounted the details of the incident. Maria's heart pounded with relief that she had acted quickly, and outrage that such a thing could happen in a place as prestigious and safe as their hotel. The incident served as a stark reminder to her that vigilance is paramount even in the most idyllic of settings. John's adventures take him to the quaint little town of San Juan del Sur, Nicaragua, known for its gorgeous beaches, vibrant culture, and friendly locals. What he in no way expected, however, was the curious company he would find in his rented room. Upon arriving in San Juan del Sur, John realized that various arachnids had unexpectedly taken up residence in this quaint seaside town. As John settled into the room, he noticed numerous spiders infesting the corners and crevices of the walls. They were enormous in size, with long spindly legs that seemed menacingly outstretched. Although he had seen quite a few arachnids before, their sheer numbers were disconcerting. With a reluctant sigh, John resigned himself to the fact that he would have to coexist with these ape-legged neighbors. The first morning in San Juan del Sur brought an even more unpleasant surprise. John awoke to an unpleasant sensation in his leg. Still drowsy, He looked down and saw a pair of small scorpions nestled on his bed. Panic gripped John and he began frantically swatting them away. His heart raced as he realized that these arachnids were no ordinary guests, but poisonous scorpions. With a sense of unease that persisted throughout the day, John decided to hold out for a few more nights. After all, the tropical paradise was too alluring to give it up so easily. In the evening, he met a friend at a local bar, hoping to drown his arachnophobic fears in a bottle of rum. As they sat in the dimly lit bar sipping drinks and reminiscing about old times, John felt a tickle on the back of his neck. He immediately thought it was probably a mosquito, common in this tropical region. Without thinking, he raised his hand to scratch the itchy spot, expecting it to be nothing more than a minor nuisance. But when his fingers touched his neck, he realized with growing horror that it wasn't a mosquito at all. In his peripheral vision, he saw something fall to the ground, and a cold shiver ran down his spine. The realization struck him like lightning. Another scorpion had chosen him as a landing pad, and this time it was much larger than the previous two. Time seemed to slow down as John stared at the menacing arachnid at his feet. The scorpion's dark exoskeleton glistened in the dim light of the bar, and its claws were ready to strike. The bar hummed animatedly, oblivious to the drama unfolding at John's feet. He couldn't bear to think of what would happen if it stung him. A surge of adrenaline triggered John's instinctive reaction. He let out a high-pitched scream that startled everyone around him. Heads turned and his mate looked at him in confusion. In one swift, desperate movement, John crushed the scorpion under his boot, causing a mixture of disgust and fear. As the scorpion lay defeated on the floor, John's heart pounded in his chest. He wiped his sweaty forehead and calmed down a bit. The rest of the bar patrons returned to their conversations and laughter, leaving John to ponder the strange encounter he had just experienced.